Report date is, it's always fun. I think the one thing that has continued to stay the same in a world that has constantly changed is fall camp. It's incredibly important, I think, for every team. I believe this is where you find out a lot about your guys. I think this is where you find your identity. I think this is where you find your formula to win that year and what it takes and who you can count on. So up until this point, I'm incredibly proud of the work that our guys have done from January up until this point, but this is where it's real. It's every day. It's hot. It's hard. It's difficult. It is a good thing in a lot of ways because this is the only time of the year where it's truly just about the football part. They're not in class, so you can adjust schedules. You can do things to present obstacles and challenges to them. You change start times and practice at different times of the day because the reality is in this league, especially if you're playing well, you can't really control the time that you're going to play, and you're expected to play well. So, this group has been fun to work with. They've done everything we've asked them to do so far. But, really getting started tomorrow is kind of where you figure out, this is where the rubber meets the road a little bit. And you find out who's really ready to help you and who's ready to go and perform. And you find out what it takes for this team to win. So we're excited about this season, excited about this group. We've had media day a couple weeks ago, so we talked a lot about the things, the youth in some spots and those guys that we expect to step up. I think we find out, who's going to show up and do it every day. And that's the fun part about coaching, particularly when you have guys that are capable of it, which we do. And the returning players that you have that have played well need to step up and need to play well. This group has been really good. We've talked about standards and we've talked about expectations and accountability that goes with all that. And I think that's what's been the most fun about it is all the expectations that we've put out there, they've turned into standards because they've been willing and receptive to accountability. And we talked about early on, expectations, without accountability or suggestions. And that's what I think I've been the most pleased with this group is the way that we've asked them to practice, the things that we've asked them to do, the with what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, they have continued to meet and exceed that day after day. So that's where you get excited about the group that you have. Certainly excited about the returning production we do have. But the cool thing about college football is every year you've got new faces that become, household names. And, I talked about in media days, I talked about Tyrell Finroy. Nobody knew who he was when he was, didn't even know how to get out of the bathroom in the conference center, his first fall camp here. And next thing you know, his number's on the wall. So that's the fun part, to see who those guys are going to be. And it's good to have a bunch of known producers and playmakers that are coming back as well. So that's what we're excited about. Looking forward to getting started tomorrow and certainly, getting these guys going.
Coach, you mentioned the comparison to a team 3 or 4 years ago that was young and didn't handle the successes, and therefore you kind of had a little bit of a yo-yo season. You mentioned what did y'all learn and can y'all learn and go harking back to not make the same mistakes this year, which is a similar type makeup of the team?
Yeah, I think it's very similar to the 23 team that you're talking about because I've kind of referenced that a little bit. That group was young on defense. It was maybe flipped a little bit. I think, truthfully, where as a coach, I think I made the biggest mistake was assume that, responding to losses and disappointment would be the biggest issue that young guys had. Our issue was responding when we had any type of success. We bounced. We didn't turn that into momentum. We turned around and really turned it into some of the worst losses that we had. I think what you learn from that, 2 things. This team's a little bit different. I think the leadership in this group is a little different. The returning players we have played a lot. They have a lot of confidence. They have taken a little more ownership of this team. But the thing you learn in a year like that is you don't let off the gas in any situation. You don't ever think that you've got it figured out because, that's with young groups, you see they respond differently. Like our baseball team this year is one I use as talented. That is an incredibly talented group. Had a bad weekend turned into 3 weeks, and then they bounced back and got it back rolling. So every team's a little different, and that's a learning curve as you go. But for me, our challenge that I've handed out to our staff is it's foot on the gas every day, good, bad, whatever. It doesn't matter because I know they respond to that. I've seen it because that's what we've done since January. And that's what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that, we need to lead as much as you have to as coaches. But I do think our leadership on this team is a little different too, in that sense that I think we have more of those veteran guys that have they've kind of stepped out and taken a leadership. I don't want to say more seriously, but they've owned that leadership role a little bit better.
Coach, when I was talking to Lunch, one of the things he talked about that he's been working with in OTAs is trying to build up that synergy with some of the pass catchers in the throw game. Just how have you seen him lean even more so into his ability as a thrower of the football?
Well, our time with him in the summer is a little bit limited, but the time that we do get with him, he's worked really hard on his feet and his rhythm, and that's something that as a quarterback, every rep you take, it just compounds on the next one. So he's done a really good job of working through it. I have seen him down there a bunch. They've been organizing those throwing sessions, and I think timing and stuff, that's something you can make up a lot of ground on in the summer. The thing is you got a bunch of guys that work really hard, and what I talked to him about this year was when you want to throw it, it's the message is not, hey, I'm going to throw if you want to come. It's I'm going to throw, you need to be there, and challenge some of the older wideouts and pass catchers that needs to be a mandate, not an optional thing. And our guys have really responded to that. They've done a great job. So I've been pleased with him through the summer so far. I think the consistency in the throw game has been a lot better, which certainly is going to help us a lot. But he's always had the ability to do that. When you have a situation where your starting quarterback is the starting quarterback, for a whole offseason and a whole year, that just kind of settles some things into place a little bit. So, hopefully and usually that pays off for you.
Where do you want to see, I guess, the running back room mature at, especially with them being younger, to, I guess, establish who's going to be that 1-2 or maybe 1-2-3 punch?
It's really going to come down to production. I think the group has been very mature for a young group of guys. Darrell Smith is, he's about as mature as they come. He handles his business. He has since the day he got here. Stephen Blanco in that first semester grew up a lot. Now he's a veteran here. Doesn't have a ton of carries, but he's been here a long time, knows how to operate. JJ is the one that I think is just the consistency day in and day out for him. As still a young player, only been here for a year. But the reality, I said it from the beginning, I felt really good about the running back room. And we've played young running backs before and had a lot of success. Our job is to play the ones that produce day in and day out, and that's going to be up to them over the course of the next 20 practices or so, to figure out how we go into the season. And obviously, once you get into the season, and you got to continue to play well. But as far as handling their business and maturity-wise, that group's been great. It's just going to be about production and producing day after day and making it repeatable and being able to produce at a high level day in and day out so that your teammates and everybody sees it over and over again.
Defensively, who's been that voice leading the charge so far for the group? So
it's kind of fun about this team. We had a couple years ago, like in 24, it was kind of like Ben and KC, right? And it was kind of like that was the two. And, my concern was that, man, two of them's really not enough, right? And then T. Lou started really growing as a leader, and Skip grew as a leader. And then on offense, you had guys like Caden Jensen that started coming along. So we were able to grow that. This year has been fun because I think the leadership is spread out a little bit in terms of, I think we have a lot of guys that have a voice and are doing it well. Jake St. Andre is one, he's kind of what this program's been built on for a long time. Comes in here as a walk-on, earns a scholarship, earns a spot. All he does is continue to earn more and more playing time. Now going into the season, expect him to start and or play a huge role on this team. So Jake is obviously one. Cody Jackson has been really good. He's been really challenged. When you go from the sophomore to junior year, that young guy tag is gone. And he's got enough play history here and a history of playing well when we've needed him to step up in that role. Brent Gordon, as a young player, has never acted like a young player. From the day that he got here, he was intent on what he wanted to do. So now, he's already seen in that kind of light. Up front, Fitzgerald West has been phenomenal the entire offseason, entire year. He has been just kind of the spark plug for that group. I don't know if I've ever seen a D-line group work as much or as hard as they do. Anytime you come up here, they're always in the indoor. They're always working. They're always doing stuff. Priest Ash is a young player that's just really mature. Ashley Williams and Tito Chikiri. There's just a lot of guys that I think it's spread out a little bit, which is fun. I think when all the weight falls on one person or two people, it's kind of where you kind of get a little concerned, truthfully, because it's, everybody's got a bad day and things happen that maybe limits their voice at times. So it's been really good to see the leadership grow on this team. And, like I said in the opening statement, that's what's exciting about the whole thing, right, is when you challenge a group of people and every challenge you give them, they continue to meet those challenges head on and ask for more. And that's kind of what this group has been, like I said, so far, right, up until this point.
Do you see that on the offensive side of like a wide distribution of voices serving as leadership?
Yeah, I do. Obviously Lunch is a born leader. He was that when he got here, even as a backup, whenever he was way down the depth chart. So when he's the starter, obviously that voice grows, and his comfort level in doing that has grown tremendously, which is really good. But it's very similar. Caden Jensen, a solid, steady voice for a long time since he's been here. Cooper Fordham, Caden Morrow, George Jackson. It goes on and on across the board as those guys. I think where you don't have a ton of it is probably in the running back room, which makes sense, right? They're all young right now. They're fighting for their role. They're fighting for how this thing falls out. In the receiver room, Shelton's quiet, but his play and his work ethic and the things he does kind of speak for themselves a little bit. Landon Strother's kind of the same way. He's just, since the day he's gotten here, he's just shown up and worked. So you got some guys that lead by example in that room, which is really good. But yeah, I do. I think you got a lot of voices out there that not only say the right things, do the right things, right, which is more important. It's easy to say the right things, but you got a lot of guys that have shown what the expectation is, modeled it, and then hold everyone accountable to meet that expectation.
How nice is it to have a lot of fresh bodies on the offensive line?
It's hard to put into words, to be honest with you. Look, when you go through what we went through last year, right, in the moment, it's really hard to see any type of silver lining. It's hard to understand. Everyone gets the poor me's, right? Like, man, why is this happening? Why are we going through this? These kids have done it the right way. They've worked, it's part of what it is. When you come out the back end of it, though, you can see a lot of good things that come out of it, right? Number one, George Jackson is back, right? He got the year back and he's back. So when you have a guy who's played that many snaps, who's done things the way he's done it, if you see him now, I think he's lost 35 pounds since last year. He looks incredible. He's in great shape. You get him back. Well, it's not just the ones you get back. Yeah, Matthew Broussard was expected to play, 15 snaps a game last year and get a little bit of time. Well, end of the year, he starts. He plays really good. Jacoby Isom, we're like, wow, he's probably going to be a redshirt guy. We'll pick the 4 games we play him in. Well, he ends up starting, and, the first real significant play time he got was in the Missouri game, and he plays lights out. And next thing you know, before he gets hurt, he plays great. So he's got experience. You got a bunch of guys on that offensive line that got experience in the long run. It's going to be a good thing for us. So it's really good. The reality of it is we got 3 of the 5 starters back on the offensive line right now. And you add Zay Alexander to the mix, who, at this point last year, we were expecting him to play probably pretty close to 50-50 at left tackle before he got hurt. So you add some quality experience right there. You add some guys who've played, who've had success. And now you can see the benefits from it. But it's like anything, you got to go through hard things to grow. And, we were able to grow some depth and certainly confidence in that room.
How much kind of going through that has allowed that depth to not just be something that's like, hey, if in case we need a guy to go in, it's more like, hey, we can maybe play with 8 or 9 guys in a different rotation to give you more flexibility on the offensive line.
Our magic number is always 8 or 9 that we need to feel really good about playing, and we need to play. Last year we felt like we had 11 that we could really play, and thank God we did. And we needed them all plus some, but that's the number you always try to get to. I feel really good about, that we're at 8 right now that you feel great about. I think, hopefully by the end of camp we can get to 9 or 10 that you feel really good about, and not saying that they all play an equal amount. But the natural progression and the thing that I think our O-line coaches have done a great job of with PJ and Steve, but really historically, all the way back to, Rob Sale and DJ Looney, play the guys that deserve to play. And what it does is, it's like anything, right? When your role grows and continues to grow as a coach, you build confidence in knowing that guy's ready to go play. Because when he was a 10 snap a game guy, he played well. When he went to 30 snaps a game, man, he played really well. Well, now he's the starter and he's going to play, 60 snaps a game. Well, everything you've given him, he's done it better and better. So I think that's something that a lot of O-line guys are not willing to do that. It's something that I think is critically important to do for not just for this year and the long haul of the season, but certainly for the future when you're in the game of development.
Does 5-for-5 change your approach with freshmen as you head into camp now that you don't have to say 4 and kind of what kind of depth can that potentially add?
Yeah, I mean, it does change things because I think we've always tried to use red shirts really responsibly. We've always tried to be very very careful in the right now payoff and playing a kid for 10 snaps a game versus the long-term 5-year payoff of him maybe being a starter for 3 years instead of 2 and what you get out of that on the back end. So, yeah, it certainly changes that. Now, Trent Chaney's one last year. We kind of tried to put him in there a little bit and kind of wasn't maybe quite ready to really take off with that role. But he's a guy you'd have loved to have had in there for, 5, 10, maybe 15 snaps a game. Maybe by the end of the year he would have been ready, right? Now you don't have to worry about those things. Now it's, hey, look, like these are the things he can do for us and do really well. Let's play him. Let's get him in there. And if it ends up being 1 snap a game or 50, it doesn't matter because they've got the 5th year back. So I think that's something that I think is a good thing. And for us, I think it, every week throughout the year, we have a red shirt tracker for every player on our team that has a red shirt available. And we mark off the games that they've played in. And once they get to the 4 games, then a real decision has to be made. Well, do we burn it or do we save it? And, that's something that, that eliminates, it's at least one less thing we got to worry about with that.
Quarterbacks, you mentioned that's a little different. You kind of know who the quarterback is from the last year. Does it change your routine or how you practice them in August in your plan, the quarterback situation this year than last year?
Probably not. I mean, as far as like you're talking about like the format and the scrimmages and stuff, probably not. I mean, look, we've got a real bad history that we're fighting here, right, with needing more than one quarterback. So, hopefully we get over the hump with that this year. But, I would hate to lose one even for a week or two, in practice. So I don't think it'll change that. They won't be live in fall camp. What it does is it allows the starter to get, really my plan right now is Lunch to take, right now he's taking 100% of the 1s reps. Hopefully it'll be about 90 where you can start working some of those other guys in there. And Coleman and Daniel will take all the 2s and split those and split them evenly, let them continue to work and continue to battle. They've both done some really good things. And then, with Sam and Alex getting here, Sam will take most of the third group reps, just he knows the offense and running it, but Alex needs to get them too and get himself ready. So it's still a good spread the way that we have it. I don't see myself really changing the format, though. I just have a hard time with that in fall camp,
I guess in the receiver room, you have a lot of other guys in behind Sheldon Sampson and Landon Strother that are kind of unproven in a sense. Like, how excited are you to see them kind of go out and make plays in space and be exposed to the world?
That's the fun part about coaching. And I say that, we've gotten to the point in college football where everyone wants to be experienced and veteran in every room and have all these known playmakers. Well, that's just not the way it works in this world. I mean, and where we are and where we fit into this whole picture, we still get to do it, the way that they've done it forever, right? You recruit good players and you develop them and they get their opportunity. And we've got guys that have worked their tails off for years on end to be ready to go. I mean, Kadarius Wade and Rajee Dennis have been here. They have been grinding and working at perfecting their craft. This spring, they've made more explosive plays and really made more plays down the field other than the routine things than they ever have, right? So they're taking steps in the right direction. Trent and Russ, they've been here for a year, but those guys have worked really diligently on their craft, and they know they have an opportunity right now to go affect it. Ja'Cory Norris just moved over to offense this year, but you see Sparks, on kick returns last year. It made that move pretty easy, and you see him day after day making progress and going at it. So, you got a handful of those guys that, Yeah, I mean that they've been working and they've been working for their turn, their opportunity. You know, I'm excited to see who rises to the top. You know, you hope that all of those guys, you know, raise their game to the level you need them to. But certainly we need a handful of them too.
You mentioned about Jacorian. Do you kind of anticipate him being the kick return, punt return guy, or will there be other players that are kind of mixed in for the opportunities to return as well?
Kick return, yeah. I mean, I think with what he did last year, that's his to lose. Punt return's pretty open right now. We got a handful of guys that are working back there. You know, one of them, you know, being Brent Gordon. I think just his offensive background and history and opportunity. Players like him, I think the more opportunity they have to change the game, certainly I think the better it is for your team. So we've got a number of guys working back there. Obviously, the first thing starts with consistency and catching the ball. You know, I mean, that goes without saying. And then secondly, you know, it's, you know, the ones that make good decisions and do things with the ball after the catch. So we got a few guys working there, but it'll be fun to see how it plays out.